Hello and welcome to Data Driven, the podcast where we explore the emerging fields of data science, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. I will not be the only AI-generated voice today as Frank and Andy interview my cousins, Alexa, Cortana, Siri, and the Google Assistant. Now that I think of it, the Google Assistant needs a proper name. Doesn't it? Without further ado, here are your hosts, Frank Lavinia and Andy Leonard.
So we're both together, and we're going to be talking about voice assistants and kind of how they work. We have some special guests with us today. Welcome once again. If you're just joining us live, it's Andy Leonard and I. We are here and we are live streaming Data Driven, the podcast where we explore the emerging fields of data science, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. How are you doing, Andy?
I'm doing pretty good, Frank. How are you?
I'm doing well. I know you have a hard stop, so I won't yammer too long. We have three special guests with us today, Andy.
Three?
That's
a record.
It is a record. And these guests are Alexa.
Hello, Alexa.
She's going to say hello back, I'm sure. Yeah. Cortana.
Ooh, hello, Cortana.
And on my phone, I have the Google Assistant.
Hello, Google Assistant. Hey, Google. That didn't work.
No, because I have headphones on. But let me tell you, whenever there's a training video or like a keynote where they talk about the integration between them, it's pandemonium in my home office because I usually have all three. And it's just utter pandemonium. So I want to switch to, so we're recording this live. So if you're watching live, thank you. If you're watching later, thank you. We always try to respond to the comments. I think we're pretty good about that. And if you're watching this, if you're listening to this on the podcast, I will try to transcribe everything I'm saying. So let me switch here and I'll see if I can put us in the little bottom here. How do I do that? There we go. Oh, well. Anyway.
Well, there we are. We're there.
This is a quote.
Almost
there. This is a quote from Charles V, who, if you're not up in your history, he was kind of a big deal. I think he was a Habsburg. I don't remember. Shame on me. But he has this quote where he says, "I speak Spanish to God, Italian to women, French to men, and German to my horse." Now, you're probably wondering, what the heck does this have to do with anything? Well, here's what it has to do with. Oh, no, PowerPoint's going to crash.
No.
You can tell we're live. Here we go. This is what I want to say. This is my modern take on this. I speak to Alexa when I'm home, to Cortana when I'm at work, and Google Assistant when I'm in my car or have my phone with me. You can also replace that with Siri. I do have an iPad, but it's not with me.
That's Frank the First, right?
Frank the First. I rather like that. So the idea here is, how do these things work? And in terms of the guests and kind of things. And I know you have a time constraint, so I just want to kind of demonstrate something that I've had the chance for a work engagement. I had the chance to kind of study up on all three because it was a competitive situation between Lewis, which is ultimately what powers Cortana, kind of behind the scenes, and Lex, which is the Alexa version for processing text, and Dialogflow, which is the Google version. So it's a lot of mouthfuls, and I did, let's see if we can get our guests to introduce themselves. Alexa, hi, how are you?
I'm feeling like a home run. This weekend I'll be watching a lot of my favorite sports.
Okay. I'm getting a warning sign on my stream ability here, so I don't know what's going on.
What's up with that?
I don't know. Well, you're still hearing me, so that's a good sign.
Yeah, you're good with me, and I'm out here in the boondocks with 25 megs, brother.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hey, Cortana, how are you?
Great, thanks.
There you go. and let's see what our friend Google Assistant has to say. Hey, I'm sorry. Okay, Google, how are you? Oops, it's still on my Bluetooth. That's why. Okay. You could tell we're live, folks, because it's just all bloopers. How are you? So we've returned a bunch of search results. Okay. What's interesting about these three is that they're all trying to solve essentially the same problem, right? They are trying to solve the ability to take human language and pipe it and convert it to, let me see if I get this screen back up, and I will maximize that. There we go. See my fancy setup?
I do.
It's cool, isn't it?
Yes.
All right. So ultimately, they're all trying to solve the same problem. Hey, we have a comment. Wise guy. Yes, I am a very wise guy. All right. So here's the problem that all these devices want to solve, right? This is a human. Mm-hmm. This is some speaker device thingy, right? And you have the cloud, which I think is really makes this possible in a lot of ways, or not just possible, but practical.
Yeah, yeah.
I say, turn. I have to be careful because I actually do have the lights in my home office set up to this. Right?
Right.
So this gets digitized into audio, right? Here.
Right. And
I'll draw that by squiggly lines, right?
I like the squiggly lines.
See, I'm talented. I'm very artistic.
You are. You're an artist.
Then a cloud service, right? Whether that's Lewis, Dialogflow, or Lex, converts that back into text or into text, right?
Right.
Turn the lights on. Then what happens is then you have to figure out, what does that mean? What's the context here, right? What's the intent? That's the official word. So that's turn, lights, and then on. Now, people will argue with me is that technically this is the intent, and this is the destination or slot. Lex calls this a slot, and this is the state that you want, right? So ultimately, there's 100 different ways I can say that, and this is what makes the really kind of an NLP problem, right? Please turn the lights on, or could you kindly turn the lights on, right? BioShock reference there for you. That sort of thing. And then whatever that happens is that this will then parse that into an action, right? Which, if you have smart plugs, it will then send a message back through the magic of the internet and then turn the actual, I like how that's doing that. Turn the actual light on. Right? So they're basically solving the same problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting about this, and I just realized I didn't say it out loud for folks listening on the podcast, but ultimately what happens is my words get translated into an electronic signal, right? A wave of sorts. And then that is then on the other side, it's then sent from the speaker to the cloud, where it will turn that sound form, that sound wave, back into text, right? Or words. And then it'll go through and it'll parse out what I'm saying and then try to get an intent from it or an action to it. And then based on that, some other program that also lives in the cloud, mostly, will then take an action based on that. Does that make sense? Did I explain that clearly?
I think so. Yeah. Okay. I like it. I like the flow.
Yeah, and it's amazing how simple this is, right? This is not rocket science. Inside your average, Echo device, it's not rocket science. It's this one's the fancy one with the screen, but the typical kind of dot one or whatever is just a microphone and a speaker and a Wi-Fi connection. It's essentially all it is, right? So ultimately, the goal then is that, let me see if I can minimize this. So the goal is that I have an example of that, and this is essentially a build your own voice kit that I saw it at Micro Center for like $5 or something like that. And inside is a speaker, a button, and a cardboard box. And if you attach a Raspberry Pi to this, you basically have a Google Home Assistant. Effectively.
Nice.
Yeah. Shame on me because I bought this longer ago than I care to admit, and I haven't built it yet. But that's just to demonstrate the point, is that these actual devices are rather simple in terms of, just them being their own thing.
Right.
So what's interesting about this, and this is where the cutting edge comes, is when you and I talk, we have our human brains. Well, some will debate about whether or not I have a human brain, but let's go with it here. The short of it is that I have the ability to understand context, right, from my previous statement. So, and I'm going to mute some of these devices because if they hear their name, they'll start going wild. What's interesting is how good Cortana is at this, how good the Google Assistant is at this, and how Alexa needs some room for improvement.
Right.
So, for instance, if you haven't caught on, the shirt I'm wearing says "Cream, Cash rules everything around me." That's from a Wu-Tang Clan song. So I will ask this simple question from Alexa. Alexa, who is the Wu-Tang Clan?
According to Wikipedia, Wu-Tang Clan is an American hip-hop group formed in Staten Island, New York City in 1992.
Oops. Alexa, what was their first album?
According to Wikipedia, the first album is the debut studio album by German duo Modern Talking. It was released on April 1st, 1980.
So you get the idea. You and I know, like if you asked me who the Wu-Tang Clan were and then what was their first album, I would tell you, right?
Right.
It does not have the notion of context. This turns out to be a very difficult problem for computers to solve.
Okay.
Because there's a lot going on, right? So if I start talking to you, it's like, Andy, I was at this great restaurant last night, da 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 da, and then we switch to another topic, then you would then say, hey, where was that place? And then I would kind of know, if you said place, I would know what you were talking about.
Right.
That is, humans have trouble with this, right? Because I have many conversations with my wife that kind of go in different directions because I have no idea what she's talking about. But I mean, it's hard for humans. It's really hard for machines. So let's try and see if Cortana does this any better. Hey, Cortana, who is the Wu-Tang Clan?
According to Wikipedia.org, Wu-Tang Clan is an American hip-hop group formed in Staten Island, New York City in 1992, originally composed of RZA, GZA...
Hey, Cortana, what was their first album?
Should I read a snippet from Wikipedia that might be related?
Yeah, I'm afraid.
The Wu-Tang Clan is a New York City-based hip-hop musical group consisting of 10 American rappers: RZA, GZA, Method Man, Raekwon, Ghostface Killah.
There's a lot of members of the Wu-Tang Clan, in case you didn't know.
Master Killah, Capadonna, and the late old dirty bastard.
Hey, Cortana, what was their first album?
There might be something on Wikipedia. Should I read it?
Yeah.
The Wu-Tang Clan is a New York City-based...
All right. Well, in the past, she did get that right.
Well, she wasn't completely off base.
She wasn't completely off.
No, she kept. It seems like some kind of workflow thing put her into. At least it identified the context. Back to your previous question.
It did, and that's a new activity. That's a new behavior. I swear,
Right.
I used to do this demo all the time, and depending on the audience, it would be Wu-Tang Clan or Aerosmith. So let's see what Google has to say. Okay, Google, who is the Wu-Tang Clan? All right, you're not very talkative today. What was their first album? Okay, the demo gods are not kind to me today. But in the past, this has worked on Home Assistant and Cortana.
Okay.
So the reason why we're doing this today, and I know Andy has a hard stop in a couple minutes, is because we are hoping to get Data Driven as a flash briefing on Alexa. And Alexa, so I was trying to do this whole surprise thing, but apparently since the demo failed, I figured I'd break into that. But that's ultimately the goal. But I also think this is an interesting topic, because for a lot of folks, this is just this magical black box that's listening, right? And it's not magical. It's all comes down to math and science, right? And the key is to understand kind of how it's built. And once you understand how it's built, you can build your own systems, and it's actually not that hard. There are more moving parts than you would think, but ultimately it just comes down to, you're taking that sound data, converting it into text, then taking that text and then converting that back into some kind of intent in action, right?
Yep.
And then on the other side, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, Mark Taylor just said it's a do loop, and he's right.
It is a do loop. We have Mark joining us again. Thanks for watching, Mark. I really should ask this, but unfortunately, the B is a bit of a not a nice word, or not a professional word for LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But they don't have a sense of humor. They
not
really,
at all, Mark.
No, they don't. But it's an interesting thing where because I'm a nerd, I happen to have all three different types, but actually four if you count Siri. Let's see if Siri will do any better on the album question. So Andy, we actually have 4 special guests.
Wow, thank you.
Isn't that crazy?
That's a new record.
Hey Siri, who is the Wu-Tang Clan?
Here's some information.
All right, so she basically punted to Wikipedia. What was their first album? So it did the transcription of what I said.
It's good.
I don't recognize this song.
Okay.
Okay.
So I swear this did work before, but I mean, ultimately, it's a very hard problem. In fact, one of the things that they showed a couple of years ago at Ignite or Build, they showed this concept video of this lady talking to Cortana, and it was on her phone. More on that in a minute. It was on her phone, and as she was driving into work, she'd be like, "Oh, remind me to tell this person, to have a meeting with them." And then the logic would then go and then schedule the meeting through the Outlook calendar, and then tell her, so and so rejected the request, but they are able to meet 30 minutes later. Is that okay? Yes. Oh, and invite so and so to this meeting as well. Right? At each one of those steps, and they call them turns. I don't like the idea of turn, but that's what the industry calls it. The AI was able to follow. Now, they were very careful to say this is a near future scenario. Like there's no, but that turned out to be a very hard thing to solve.
Yeah.
Carrying that context from turn to turn, whereas with humans, it's much easier for us to operate that way. So I think if you're talking about the real cutting edge of what this research is, it's going to be about that. Yeah. Now, I will give Alexa props on this, is that if you play a song, and pick any song you like, you can try this at home. When the song ends, wait a minute or two, and then say, "Hey, can you play that song again?" Now, there is a timeout period. I'm not sure exactly what it is on Alexa, but 24 hours. I tried it later. She's had no idea what I was talking about.
Right.
Now, I'm not sure how configurable that timeout period would be, but I do know for Lewis and for Dialogflow, I think it's about 5 to 20 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's reasonable, I would think. I've also asked Alexa to play more like that song.
Yes, and she does get it.
And she'll go to a station or something that's similar music, similar genre.
So I haven't played a song on her since at least this morning, so I'll say, "Alexa, play more songs like that."
This is Wu-Tang Clan from Frank's Spotify.
Look at that.
No way.
All right, I better pause that before bad words come out. Now that's interesting. That I did not expect that. That's interesting.
Interesting that it went back that far.
It kept that context.
Yeah.
That's actually an improvement. And for me, turning the lights on and off and stuff like that, I have that set up here. You know, Alexa, turn off the backlight. Oh, she's muted, so it's not gonna work. Alexa, turn off the backlight. And if you're watching on the camera, you'll see that it
backlight went off.
And then let's see if I can turn it back on. So you mean you get the idea? Now I look like a ghost because the lighting is not. Alexa, turn the backlight back on. Okay, that's better.
Awesome.
But that's kind of it. And I think, you know, let us know in the comments if you want to see do more of these kind of these practicals. Maybe we'll do a live coding session. I am hoping to get the flash briefing to get data driven on your Alexa devices, so you can just add it to your flash briefings. I'm hoping to get that done very soon. It's definitely something Andy and I had talked about, long overdue, but you know, I want to get that done. And but I, you know, in order to do that, I want to kind of explain like, well, what exactly is going on, you know, with this. So it's
Sure.
definitely. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, just saying, sure, agreeing with you.
And I do love my Cortana speaker. It's a Harman Kardon speaker. The sound on this is awesome. I can pipe Spotify to it. I can
That's great.
get my calendar information through Cortana. However, the other day, see, she was activated. So, however, the other day, I was moving something and I accidentally elbowed the top button, because the top button here is kind of like the secret button.
Oh.
And it'll tell you like an announcement or a random fact of the day. But unfortunately, when I accidentally hit it the other day.
Here's something important you should be aware of. In January 2021, the Cortana service will be removed from your Invoke speaker. Please visit aka.ms/invoke support.
I love this thing. I mean, it's so that I'm gonna get my enjoyment's worth out of the last 3 months I have of that speaker. I actually enjoy it. I get a lot of value out of it. So I was really disappointed to hear that. The upside is that if you have one of these and they're active use, when you go to the link that's in there, you get a $50 credit to the Microsoft Store.
Nice.
So I bought a video game with it. So,
sweet.
But I mean, I got my value out of it. I'm sad to see it go, but I can always Bluetooth it to this, you know. So
gotcha. Frank, I got to roll. This was awesome.
You got to roll. It was awesome. Thanks for joining, and I'll do the closeout in a little bit. Do the closeout now and answer any questions you have. All right, that's it for Data Driven. Thanks for listening to the show. Be sure to check us out on Spotify, LinkedIn Live. Oh no, we don't. This is for the podcast audience. So, see, there are actual lots of bloopers here. Get log analytics and ASC for your home now. ASC. Oh, Azure Security Center. That's a good idea, actually. All right, let me finish this this closeout. All right, thanks for joining us here on this episode of Data Driven. Be sure to check out our website, datadriven.tv, and hopefully very soon we will be on a Alexa flash briefing. Stay tuned. In the meantime, and have a great day. All right, that's it. Yeah, I'd love to get Azure Security Center on. What I really want to get is they make this thing. It's called the Wi-Fi Squirrel, Packet Squirrel, where you can put it on a network and it'll sniff all the packets. And I would do that just to say, you know, hey, you know, is that smart TV? Is it really phoning home like the way people say it is? That sort of thing. Guy I know has a really killer network setup. I think I mentioned it in an episode of Impact Quantum. Oh yeah, I probably should re-record the whole thing. Thanks, David. Thanks, David. Thanks for watching. All right, let me re-record that outro. Oh, thanks for listening for your data. Thanks for listening to Data Driven, the pod. Now, wait a minute. Thanks for listening for Data Driven. Thanks for listening to this episode of Data Driven, recorded live on LinkedIn, Twitch, Stream, and YouTube, and Periscope. If you like what you're doing, definitely check us out on those platforms. Like, subscribe, share, tell all your friends about us. And as a reward, if you go to thedatadrivenbook.com, we partnered up with Audible, so you can actually get yourself a free audiobook. Definitely, if you listen to the show, you know Andy and I are huge fans of audiobooks, and we've definitely been getting our money's worth out of that subscription. On another note, if you have not already, check out our other podcast, Impact Quantum, where we talk about how quantum computing and innovations in that space are about to completely upend the world, solve the world's biggest problems, and as well as to really revolutionize deep learning and artificial intelligence. So with that, I bid you a great day and a good afternoon. And I'll let the automated voice assistant that we have set up do the outro.
Thanks for listening to Data Driven. We know you're busy and we appreciate you listening to our podcast. But we have a favor to ask. Please rate and review our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you subscribe to us. You have subscribed to us? Haven't you? Having high ratings and reviews helps us improve the quality of our show and rank us more favorably with the search algorithms. That means more people listen to us, spreading the joy. And, can't the world use a little more joy these days? So, go do your part to make the world just a little better and be sure to rate and review the show.